Hello book lovers! Today I'm doing Top 10 Tuesdays, which is a weekly meme hosted by the Broken the Bookish blog, and I'm going to put a link to this week's post down in the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside. So today's topic is Top 10 Books I Thought I'd Like More or Less Than I Did. Let's go! So I've separated these books into the more or less categories, and we're going to start with books that I thought I'd like more than I did, because I don't want to end the video on a downer. So these books were the disappointments. But I mean, that's not to say I didn't like them, just that probably I just had really high expectations for them and my expectations weren't met. So that's a little bit of a letdown. So, first book I thought I'd like more than I did, Shut Out by Kodi Keplinger. This is an advanced reader copy. I was so excited when I won this book because I loved her first book, The Duff, which it's probably a little bit more well-known. It kind of made a little bit of a splash in the young adult book world when it first came out because of the topic it was dealing with, and I thought it was a really great topic, and I thought she did such a good job, and I loved it, and I loved the romance, and I was just so into it. But this one, it just didn't live up to my expectations. Based on the first book, I thought I would love it as much as I loved the first book, especially because this is another great topic, and I do think she handled the topic really well. It's just, my main problem with this book is that I just didn't like the main character, so I didn't like the book as much as I thought I would. Number 2, Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson. Again, because I loved Speak so much. I mean, Speak is a classic. Speak is a young adult classic. So I had to pick up Winter Girls when it first came out, even though I'm not too big of a fan of reading about girls with eating disorders, but I thought, you know, Laurie Halse Anderson would do a really good job with it, and she did. She did a really good job handling this difficult topic. I mean, a really good job, and if you look at stylistically, she does brilliant things with her writing. It's just that personally, I just wasn't that into this story, so there you go. Number 3, The Carrie Diaries by Candace Bushnell. I'm sure most of you know because it has recently been made into a TV show on the CW, but this is based on Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City when she was a teenager living in Connecticut. And I grew up in Connecticut, so that's one thing I always really loved about Carrie, was that she was from Connecticut and then moved to New York. But anyway, I was never a die-hard Sex and the City fan, not at all. I mean, I watched it with my friends because one of my best friends, it was her favorite show, and it was funny. I related to the adult humor a lot, but I'm always more of a fan of teen shows and books, so when I found out about this book, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so good. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I just wanted it to be, like, amazing, and for me it wasn't, but I am loving the TV show. Loving it. Like, a lot more. I'm enjoying it more than I enjoyed the book, which doesn't often happen, so, you know, there you go. And number 4, I might be kicked out of the BookTube community for this, but my last book that I thought I would like more than I did, yeah, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I know that this is like everyone's favorite John Green book, but I've said this before, it is my least favorite. It is by far my least favorite John Green book. And of course that's not to say that it is a bad book. Clearly it's a wonderful book and I liked it more than I like 90% of the other books that I own, but because it's John Green and because Looking for Alaska and Paper Towns and An Abundance of Catherines and even Will Grayson were like perfect young adult literature. I just fell in love with each one of those books. I love his male characters. I love his male narrators. They're so funny and nerdy and adorable, and I love them so much, and I just love reading about them. So this wasn't as good for me. And I think he, you know, being a male, he did a really good job writing from a teen girl's perspective. He did. It's just that I love his male characters so much more, so I didn't like this as much as I thought I would. I can't wait for his next book, and I'm just praying that he'll go back to writing about boys. And now we're going to move on to the books that I thought I would like less than I did, which means I liked them more than I expected, which is always really nice. Yay! So we have number 5, One for the Money by Jana Davanovich. I talk about this series a lot on this channel. This is the Stephanie Plum series, and this was recommended to me when I was 19-ish, I want to say. I was young. I was like just out of high school. And this was recommended to me by my then boyfriend's mother because she knew I liked to read. And I was like, okay, I'm not really going to take a mom's recommendation for my reading because I was reading mostly young adult books, not all, mostly at that time, and just I don't read too much adult stuff, especially because I kind of thought it would be like romance. I wasn't really sure what was going on. But then very soon after that, my best friend's mother recommended it to me too, and I was just like, okay, why not? So I picked it up, and it sounded a lot better than I thought, but I didn't think I would get into an adult book that much. Oh my goodness. I could read every one of these books. They're on, what, 18? Yeah, 18, 19. 19 just came out. Okay. There's almost 20 of these books, and I could just read the whole thing just over and over and over again. They're so funny. They're so freaking funny. I love them. So I liked this so much more than I expected, and I'm so grateful for having, like, given this book the chance. Number 6. Fat Kid Rules the World by K.L. Going. This was a recommendation from a lot of different people at my school. It's very big in the young adult literature world. Like, it's, I don't want to say like a classic, but it was supposed to be such a well-written book, and it was just really respected and everything. And it was suggested to me when I decided to write my critical thesis about boys' friendships. People told me to check it out, and I was just skeptical because, well, mostly when I looked up the book, I hate this cover. I hate this cover, and yes, I totally judge books by their cover. I'm sorry. Everybody does. People who say they don't are liars. You lying people. You do, at least somewhat, in some sense. You have to. You have to form an opinion about a book when you see its cover. I mean, you have to at least form an opinion about the cover. You either like it or not. So, there you go. And I hate this cover. But I read the book, and it was so good. I loved it. It was like, it's the kind of book, like, I wanted to hug it. It was like a really feel-good story, which is strange because it's about really difficult topics, but yes. Everyone should read this book. Everyone should read this book. Number 7, Holes by Louis Sachar. And this is along the very same lines as my reasoning for the last one. This was recommended to me, and really, it's classic. This is classic children's literature, and I had never read it. And I had actually never even seen the movie, even though it had Even Stevens in it, and I love him. For a long time, I loved him, and, you know, I mean, they would always play the movie on TV, and I would see, like, little pieces of it, but I was just like, whatever. And so then I read it, and oh my goodness, it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. Like, I'm impressed. I am impressed by Louis Sachar's storytelling ability, the way he jumps back and forth from the past and present story and tells this big, like, mythical tale. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. Number 8, Swim the Fly by Don Kalami. I always call him Dan when I try to talk about this, but Don. This was recommended to me by someone at school much more recently because I said I was writing about boy friendships, and because my novel that I'm currently working on is also about a boy, and so she said to check this out, and I had never heard of it at all, and I looked it up, and honestly, I'm not into, like, sports novels, even though I'm writing about boys. Like, not all boy books have to be about sports, right? But, oh my goodness, this is not about sports. This is just, it's not about sports. I promise. It is freaking hilarious. There's like 2 main plots. One is that this boy volunteers on his swim team to swim the fly, which is the hardest competition in the meet, and he does it to impress a girl, but he's awful at it, so he spends the whole book like trying to like train and trying to figure out how to do this, and it's just not going well. And then at the same time, his friends, he has this group of friends, and they always make a summer goal, and this year they decided that their goal is to see a live naked girl. So that's when the real, like, hilarity ensues. That's what this book is about. Hilarity ensues. Every time they, like, try to do something, like, try to make a plan to make this happen, just things go very badly, and it's amazing. I loved this book. I could not stop laughing, and then there's 2 companion novels, not sequels, companion novels, and just perfect. Wonderful, hilarious, adorable, adorable, funny boy books. Number 9, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. First of all, I'm not a huge non-contemporary reader. Definitely not a huge dystopian reader. And also, I don't like when things are like really, really hyped. I have like a strong resistance to something that is like super popular. Not because I think, oh, it's popular, it must not be good. Like, I'm not having like a snobbish attitude about it. It's just something just makes me like pause and whatever. I just it's a thing. It's a thing, okay? I resisted reading Twilight for the longest time, but clearly, you know, I could have resisted longer and it would have been okay. But with this, yeah, I mean, I read the description and I was like, really? I'm really gonna read about kids killing each other? But of course, like, I started it before bed one day and I was up until 6:30 in the morning until I finished it, and of course, it was amazing. Duh. And finally, number 10, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Yeah, I did not think I was going to like this book. I wasn't, like, jumping for joy at the chance to read it, mostly because I heard about it for the first time. I read it before it became, like, one of the most well-known books in the world. I mean, I don't remember how old I was. I want to say I was in elementary school. It could have been, like, 7th grade, though, but I think it was, like, 6th grade. I think. I don't know. I have a bad sense of time. But anyway, I was at my best friend's house one day, and we both liked to read a lot and everything, and she had this book lying on her bed, and I was like, what is that? I had never heard of it, and she was like, oh my goodness, it's about a boy wizard, it's so cool, and I was just like, what? Because, again, I mean, I didn't read much. I mean, I had read, like, The Hobbit and loved it, and some Chronicles of Narnia at that time, but I just wasn't a huge, like, fantasy person, so I was like, really? But, of course, she was doing something and I was bored, like, sitting there waiting for her, so I just picked it up and started reading it, and of course, I read the first chapter and I was like, I need this book, and she wouldn't let me have it because she wasn't done reading it, so I had to, like, run home and have my mom take me to Barnes & Noble to get it, and that's that. That's the story of that, so, yeah. So there's my list, guys, my top 10 books I thought I would like more or less than I did. What do you think? Did you form, like, pre-opinions? Did you form pre-opinions? Does that make sense? Did you form opinions to any of these novels prior to reading them, and then were your opinions proved right or wrong? Is that what I'm trying to say? I think that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let me know. Let me know your feelings and judgments about these books, or tell me some of your books that you liked more or less than you thought you would. And yeah, and you can leave a video response. That would be really cool. Or you can do a blog post, and you can leave either of those on the Broken the Bookish blog page, because they have a little linky thing, so you can link up your post, and that's what I'm going to do. And once again, the link to that will be in the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside. I've had too much coffee at this point, so I'm going to go now. Okay, bye! You're doing it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Swish and flick. Bye! Now go read.